Hello, my name is the legendary Zoltan, and I am here to answer the question. Is Final Fantasy VII Remake, objectively, on its own merits, a high-quality game? A good game, if you will. Not did I like it, not should you buy it, not is it actually a remake or a sequel. On its own, is Final Fantasy VII Remake an objectively good game or not? Do my words raise any red flags in your mind? A lot of people believe that everything about games is subjective. That because not everybody likes the same things, it can't be objectively good or bad. Well, those people are bitches. I mean wrong. Those people are wrong. Bitch wrong! I think the reason people come to that conclusion is because they always judge games based on the standards of what they like. But if you judge a game based on standards of good game design and what experience the game is trying to create for the player, there are your objective criticisms right there. Let me give you an example of an objective flaw based on game design standards. It is considered a standard of good game design to have the difficulty of your game increase little by little as you continue to play. So the last boss is the hardest to defeat and the first boss is the easiest. But what if the third boss in the game is the hardest boss? What if you need to fight random battles over and over just to stand a chance? That is called a difficulty spike, and that is exactly what happens in Tales of Goddamn Vesperia. Difficulty spikes are considered objectively bad game design, because nothing that came before prepared the player for the jump in the amount of skill or character parameters required to win the battle, and because what comes after isn't similarly difficult. So what was the point of making the player level up or practice so much if the increased character parameters or skill isn't required to continue? Some people see these moments in games as brick walls and put the game down never to return. Some people are slightly annoyed by them, but get through them without too much trouble. Some people hate them, but are willing to do whatever it takes to get past them because their gamer pride is on the line. And some people can even enjoy them. If you enjoy fighting lots of random battles over and over with the sole purpose of over-leveling your characters, you can enjoy seeing the difference between the first time you fought Dolce in Eternal Sonata and died and the time you finally beat her ass. As you can see, the definition of something being objectively bad has nothing to do with whether people enjoy it or not. If you tell someone that the thing they like is objectively bad, they might take it personally. I guess we all want to believe that we have good taste, but I'm here to be the example. Two games that are often referred to as having the worst characters in all of JRPGs are Star Ocean 4 and Xenosaga. And I can admit that I freaking love those games. So let's not be afraid to say, this is bad, but I like it anyway. Or, this is good, but I hate it anyway. I will be judging many aspects of the game from both the perspective of a first-time player and that of an FF7 diehard Cloud and Sephiroth yaoi fanfiction writer when applicable. Would you like to know if the side quests are meaningful character development or meaningless filler? If the game should have had AI control settings or not? If the ghosts are good writing or not? Then this is the video for you! I have already done an hour-long, deep-ass critique of the demo for this game. The demo is Chapter 1 of the full game, and it is exactly the same, except for the absence of a quick flashback scene. A lot of things I said in that video apply to the full game, but some things don't because I was treating the demo as a full game on its own. I will be making allusions to that video, but I will not be repeating everything I said there. So if you want the details, I suggest watching that video first. There is a link to it in the description box of this video. The main reason to watch that video is for the in-depth breakdown of the battle system and my proof for why it works and is objectively well done. Check it out, yo. Let's get this show on the road, starting with the music. Final Fantasy VII Remake's music is objectively good. Next up is the graphics. Oh, sorry. You want reasons and evidence, don't you? Okay, I'm going to talk about 4 main topics regarding the music. 1, overall sound quality. 2, variety. 3. Appropriateness to the scene. And 4. Radios and jukeboxes. Super objective observation about the music, number 1. The sound quality is pristine. Not all, but most of the music in the game is orchestral music. Real-life orchestra music, so you can't deny the sound quality. I'm no expert on sound engineering, but the mixing and mastering sound as professional as any other big-budget video game. No instruments are being buried under other instruments because of poor equalization. The compositions themselves are by Final Fantasy series veteran Nobuo Uematsu, who is considered legendary at this point. I'm sure there is some amazing audiophile out there who can say, they need to add another 0.3 decibels around the 800 Hz area for the oboes. But the general public has been declaring the soundtrack of FF7 Remake one of the strongest aspects of the game ever since release, and for good reason. Other than the overall quality of the sound and compositions, there are some more easily measured observations that can be made. Super objective observation about the music, number 2. There is a lot of variety to be found in this soundtrack. The orchestral tracks have strong enough melodies that they are easy to differentiate in your mind. In other words, they don't all sound the same, nor do they sound generic. A good example of a song that isn't generic is Beneath the Rotting Pizza. Not at all a commonly heard style in RPGs. That song sounds completely different from all the other songs in the game, while still sounding like it belongs. I think we have the mastering to thank for that. There is a song with heavy metal guitars for a boss fight, an acoustic guitar song for the Sector 5 slums, a song with groovy saxophones for Wall Market, hate that goddamn song, and there are even electronica songs. The songs range from ambient pieces to total ragers, and they all fit their places in the game extremely well. Segue! Super objective observation about the music, number 3. The songs all fit their places in the game extremely well. Here's the Sector 5 Slums theme. It matches. Here is the Airbuster battle theme. Appropriately epic, I'd say. Here is the Wall Market theme. It sucks, right? But it fits the area. Here is Barrett giving a charismatic speech over the theme of his mortal enemy, Shinra.
Though you may not be crying out, I know you're in pain, just like the planet. But it's okay, cause I'm here for you, to help take the load off your shoulders. Your fears, your worries, your concerns, and yes, your feelings. Whatever your problem, I got you.
Here is an arrangement of the basic battle music, and you tell me if you would work out to this music. Here is the gayest strike a pose music, and you tell me that it's not the exact song you would compose if you were asked to write stereotypical gay strike a pose music. not bad, right? But the effort to make music that matches the scene goes far beyond just the compositions. There are many instances throughout the game of dynamic music. What does dynamic music in video games mean? It means the music changes depending on what's happening on the screen. I don't mean that the cutscene music plays when the cutscene starts. Obviously that happens too, but it gets more detailed than that. Throughout the game, you will hear music switch between multiple versions of the same song. For example, in Chapter 2, when you're running around the streets of Sector 8, you get this BGM, which has no melody. Now encounter some enemies, and the music instantly switches to the battle version of the same song. The transition is completely seamless, as it actually waits until the end of a measure to switch to the battle version. This happens throughout the game. Here is the Mako Reactor theme. Here is the bombing mission theme, doing it differently. Battles and exploration have the same music, but then it switches to a quieter version when you have a conversation with your party members.
So what's Soldier Boy's deal? Is he one of us now? He's got...
My favorite use of dynamic music in the game is the Shinra Tower 59th floor theme. They really caught me by surprise with this one. You can walk around in this lobby-type area all you want and there are no battles. But once Tifa jumps up to start the monkey bar sequence, the Tifa Sexy Monkey Bar workout version takes over.
Hand over hand, huh? That's fine. Bring it on.
An interesting note is that the music doesn't revert back to the other version if you go back down to the floor, because there ain't no stopping this train we're on. And there ain't no stopping the Tifa Sexy Monkey Bar workout. They take dynamic music to a whole new level during boss fights. Most bosses have multiple attack phases, and each phase is like a different part of the song. The Airbuster fight is a good example. The music that plays here is like a composition with 4 movements. The game loops movement 1 until you have lowered the boss's hit points enough to start phase 2, where it will switch to the second movement of the song. Each part isn't that different from the others, and they are all the same tempo, so it's easy to make the transition sound seamless. Most of the boss phase transitions start with an in-battle cutscene. This is an excellent way to make sure the music perfectly fits the scene. Ultra kudos to the music programmers for all of this. Now there is one scene where I would say the music was inappropriate to the scene, and that was when the Sector 7 plate fell. This is supposed to be the saddest, most brutal scene in the game. From first we hear of Shinra's plan to drop the plate, the only thing the party wants to do is get back and prevent it from happening. Throughout 2 long-ass dungeons obstructing our way, Tifa makes multiple dramatic comments about how there's just no goddamn way. Shinra wouldn't kill so many people just to get to us, would they? In Chapter 3, anytime you look up, you can see the plate looming over you. It's obvious that if that thing ever fell, the entire area below would be nothing but a giant slice of thin crust pizza. In Chapter 4, we go topside of the Sector 7 plate and see the nice neighborhood built on it, which includes Jessie's loving parents' house. They endear Mama Raspberry to the player by giving her the best pizza recipe in town, and she's even named it the Midgar Special. And of course, once we finally arrive at the pillar, everybody is fighting with all they've got to prevent it from falling. People died for the cause because they knew the death toll would be insane. We got 2 dramatic death scenes for Biggs and Jessie. Aerith had to allow herself to be captured so that Barrett's daughter Marlene could escape the plate fall. And after the event was all over, several bad guys who were involved in the releasing of the plate are shown feeling guilty about having done it. So we can see that the game has established this event as a monstrous tragedy. Here is the scene. Pay attention to the music. The rock guitar and electronica sounds are making this less of a tragic catastrophe and more of a badass action movie sequence. It would have worked far better with no music at all. The way it is now, it's missing a lot of potential impact. Super objective observation about the music, number 4. The radios and jukeboxes sound like crap. Throughout the game, you can hear FM radios and jukeboxes playing music outside and in shops. The function of these radios is to create an immersive atmosphere, to add to the world building, or to make their locations more memorable. Do they accomplish any of these feats? It depends on who is listening. They could be successful if the player walks into a shop, hears the sick jam on the radio, and decides to hang out and listen before browsing their inventory. But it's got some self-induced hurdles to overcome in order to work as intended. The first hurdle is that these radios are not in locations that you would normally spend a lot of time. In shops, next to benches in the middle of dungeons, and just outside on the street. If the music can't make the player stop in the middle of their current task, they won't hear much of the song. The second hurdle is how the music fades in the closer you get to the source. The normal background music fades out at the same time, so you have a crossfade happening. This means there will be a short time where stuff just sounds like crap because you are hearing the 2 themes at roughly the same volume. The biggest problem with the radio music is that it has realistically bad sound quality. It's been EQ'd and has effects on it to make it sound like low-fidelity radio music coming out of a small speaker. I know it's an artistic choice to create a specific effect, but you can't get around how crappy the music sounds. A problem that comes in a close second is the fact that the normal background music never fades completely to zero, so you can still hear it while you're trying to listen to the radio.
Fireworks to light up your night sky. In a flash, life and love can go on. Life can be hard, it can be bitter, but we can make it oh so sweet. Here at the honeybee, in every moment is a treat.
The world-building effect that I mentioned before is not present with these radios, because you know the inhabitants of Midgar didn't listen to remixes of the FF7 battle music. These songs are definitely more for fan service than anything else, which is a good service to be sure, but why couldn't they have just have the background music fade out and have the music radio be audible from the first note, like in Rogue Galaxy and Brave Fencer Musashi?
Are you new to this area?
Both of these games create the shop atmosphere better than FF7 Remake does because of how clearly you can hear the music and how often you hear it. So I'm going to claim that the radio implementation is objectively bad. I admit that I've just talked a long time about a pretty small thing. It hardly detracts from my enjoyment of the game, but I'm here to ask the questions to decide if this game is well made or not. And the question at hand now is the radio music effective? No, it is not. Or at least it's not as effective as it could be. Motomu Toriyama said that Sector 7 was originally intended to be a hub area that you would return to over and over again. If that had worked out, you would have had far more opportunities to listen to music while sitting down with a drink in Tifa's bar. Unfortunately, that's not how it turned out. Even after you beat the game, you have to go back in time to Chapter 3 if you want to listen to the jukebox. It's a fun feature marred by inconvenience. Now for my miscellaneous observations about the sound. Number 1, the sound effects are appropriate. The sound of Cloud's sword slices well suit how they look on screen and are different from Tifa's punches, Barrett's bullets, and Aerith's magic. I didn't give the sound effects their own segment in the review because this is a big budget game, and even low budget games usually have no problems with sound effects. The only thing they didn't do is change all the sword sound effects in cutscenes to match when you have the nail bat equipped. Number 2, there are 2 different sound effects for when you move the menu cursor vertically and horizontally. I don't think this was a necessary piece of feedback for players, but I felt good noticing it. And if you didn't realize it before watching this video, press the like button. Number 3, the volume levels of voices, music, and sound effects are well balanced, and you have the option to change them at any time in the menu. You might feel a little overwhelmed when walking through areas full of NPCs as their voices layer over and interrupt each other. Personally, I like it because it sounds hilarious.
Sword's massive.
Searching for candidates.
I hear you, sir.
Got new numbers for Monsters Playing.
Number 4, if you've played the original, some of the various boss themes can end up sounding like a randomized basket of FF7 music. I found this most noticeable during the Airbuster, Genova, and Sephiroth fights. The Airbuster song has 4 movements, but the first movement contains the entire original song faithfully from start to finish. From that perspective, all the following movements have been run through a randomizer. The first movement has basically 4 parts in my analysis. The intro guitar riff is part A. The quick interlude kind of guitar solo is part B. The next part is C. This last part, where the drums slow down all the way to the end, is part D. So the first movement is A, B, C, D, in order, as originally composed. Once the next phase begins, there is some transitional stuff that plays during the cutscene that never comes back. And then we have an alternate version of A. Yet another variation of A. A brand new part, E. The third movement is just A, D, B. And the last movement is A plus D, B, F, ending. That's right. They play a part that is a combination of both A and D. Clever? Sure. But all these variations on part A and the freaking A plus D combination section spliced together with all the transition parts during the phase shift cutscenes only make it harder to differentiate each section and understand the form of the song. We started with A, B, C, D, and we moved on to A, E, then A, D, B, and finally A plus D, B, F, ending. Are you confused yet? Sephiroth and Jenova are the same way. Sephiroth's original song is already composed of numerous, very short segments, giving it a chaotic feel. So to take all those segments and play variations on them all in a new order makes the song longer and more confusing. Surely fans of the original were going out of their mind, waiting for the song to be played in a more recognizable way. In what I think is the third movement, the song actually gets played from start to finish, once again, faithful to the original. Doing that only highlights the randomness of everything that came before. Did Masashi Hamauzu want to enshrine the original compositions or do his own thing? It's unclear from these boss battle themes. Genova is actually a lot more comprehensible in its structure, but it still contains a lot of variations and then at the end plays the song faithfully, again. The third phase is the original composition, which is easy to follow as intro, A, B, C. The parts are all variations, but the first phase is almost identical in form at least, with intro, A, B, D. And the second phase is completely identical, intro, A, B, C. It certainly makes a nice build-up to the real song in phase 3 when the music is the fastest and most energetic. But just like the other two examples, all these additional parts add to the amount of music while obscuring the melodies and making them less memorable. Number 5, another thing that could be considered problematic to fans of the original game is having certain songs play during scenes that don't deserve that song. What do I mean when I say the scene doesn't deserve the song? Well, first example, the grand overworld music from the original has been toned down to sound less epic despite being played by a full orchestra now, and was used for the Sector 7 slums? Really? Why this song? In an interview with Motomu Toriyama, he said they chose that music because Sector 7 was meant to be a hub town that you return to over and over again, and they wanted something cozy that felt like home. Well, even toned down, the theme of the entire overworld of FF7 doesn't feel like home. Now, that is, of course, subjective, but tell me, dudes, tell me, whose image of a cozy home has "I'm worried about what's over the horizon" chords? Whose image of a cozy home has a creeping up behind you Jaws bass line? The song was composed to fit a grand open world. Old school fans will be aware of this. Sector 7 doesn't deserve this music. Second example, that creepy music that plays in the original when you're following a trail of blood in the Shinra Tower. It's a very effective song that adds to the atmosphere as the party finds out that the big bad guy, Shinra, who the party have been trying to stop for the past 5 hours, was one-shot by a Sephiroth sword in the back. It's an important piece of a carefully crafted build-up to the reveal of Sephiroth. But in the remake, your next-door neighbor is making whoopee a little too loudly in the middle of the night, and we get this song? The scene doesn't deserve it. Third example, remember that time when Sephiroth was in Nibelheim and he decided to start reading books, and this act alone prompts an ominous tubular bell combined with a heartbeat drum? The things he learned blew his mind so badly that he decided to just burn this entire town to the ground. And they keep the same percussion and add a choir and a bass line to it to drive home the fact that Sephiroth isn't playing Mr. Nice Guy anymore. remake, Cloud sees a hallucination of Sephiroth on the way home from the first mission, and we have to chase after him in super slow motion, and this song is playing.
The hell? Wait.
There has been no build-up to Sephiroth yet. He hasn't done anything yet. The scene doesn't deserve it. Number 6, when your party members get far enough away from you, their voices become obscured. Not just with a lower volume, they EQ it or something so that it sounds a bit muffled. It sounds like it should when you've just turned a corner and their voice is being blocked by the structure. But most of the time, they're just a few meters behind you, so they should sound just a bit quieter instead of sounding contained.
We could get lost in here.
This is the train graveyard, all right. A real treasure trove of scrap.
Sector 7 should be just past that large maintenance facility over there. I vote we stay in the light so we can see where we're going.
Dark, dark everywhere.
That it?
Overall, Final Fantasy VII Remake has an amazing soundtrack with epic orchestral music, the highest tier of sound production, and lots of variety. They have gone above and beyond in terms of both quality and quantity. You know what? I have decided that I don't need to critique the graphics because throughout this video, you're going to be looking at the graphics and you can tell if they look nice or not. So here's that low resolution door, and another thing, and another thing. Here's that one skybox everybody talks about, and here's the other one. And I need to let you know that the game has a constant frame rate and a dynamic resolution. So when things become graphically intense, instead of slowing down, the base PS4 will drop from 1080p to 900p resolution. That is great because now gameplay isn't being affected. Now let me give you my list of miscellaneous graphics observations. Number 1, materia sizes are inconsistent throughout. In cutscenes, they are the size of a perky boo. Large enough to take up the majority of your hand, but not the whole thing. But when they are slotted into your gear, they have the diameter of an areola. I don't see this as something that's important, but it would have been a nice bit of continuity to have them always the same size. It would have been an even nicer bit of continuity if increasing the number of materia slots was visible on your weapon models. Number 2, when you exit the maintenance facility in the train graveyard, you can see the battle happening at the pillar. Nice touch. Number 3, NPCs look terrible by comparison to your characters. Far less detail. Everyone looks extremely plain. Also, fighting monsters is supposed to be a thing in this world, but almost nobody looks ready for combat. Number 4, equipped weapons and materia are visible on your characters in cutscenes. Awesome! The first time you play through the game, Tifa and Barret always start with their default equipment. But I was pleased to see that you can see them with different equipment in New Game Plus. Some things do look weird. Barret will shoot bullets in cutscenes even when equipped with a cannonball. In a cutscene at Shinra HQ, Cloud had the hard edge equipped, and it's so long that it clips right through the floor. And of course, Biggs will still refer to Cloud's weapon as a sword, even if he's carrying a nail bat. As I mentioned earlier, not all materia slots on your weapons are represented visibly on the sword itself. It's just the first 2 slots. I would rather have all these small flaws than not have the feature at all, but that is just my preference. The most impressive aspect of this feature has got to be during the cutscene where you meet Rufus. He shoots at Cloud, and Cloud dodge rolls the bullets. If you have the parry materia equipped, Cloud will parry instead of dodge roll. That is above and beyond my expectations. I wonder if there are any other scenes that could be affected by your materia. Number 5. When your HP gets low, the whole screen turns red. We've had this since Dragon Quest 1, and it's been in a lot of games since. Am I seriously the only person in the whole world who thinks this is both unnecessary and ugly as hell? Number 6. I'm gonna put this here because I guess it counts as a monster graphics issue. Why is the Crab Warden called Crab Warden when it obviously looks like a rhinoceros beetle? For some reason, Barrett brings this to your attention. I don't understand if this was a joke, a mistake, a lore thing that I don't know about, or what.
So, you bump into any giant robots like that in Reactor 1?
Yeah, except the bastard looked like a scorpion. Speaking of which, what would you say that last one looked like?